Welcome to Heartbreak Chronicles. Sunlight slanted in through gaps in the blinds, casting streaks of light on the wood-chip-covered floor. Marcus stood hunched under the kitchen sink cabinet, drill in hand, focused on installing the new oak floor. The weekend DIY project was part of a commitment he and Elise made before their 5th wedding anniversary, although it's actually been postponed for almost 6 months. That's how Saturday mornings are supposed to go, he thought to himself, contentedly watching his progress. It's a quiet spring day in Montreal, Canada, and the chirping of birds outside the window is intertwined with the hum of an electric drill. Marcus' cell phone vibrates in his pocket, but he chooses to ignore it. The project had dragged on for too long, and he knew Elise sometimes got annoyed with him for not fulfilling his commitments. Elise, a senior analyst at an international consulting firm, is always dressed in sophisticated suits and perfectly coiffed hair, a stark contrast to Marcus's wood-chip and sweat-soaked look. However, it is this complementarity that has kept their marriage going for so many years. At least that's what Marcus always thought. The sound of the front door opening and closing interrupted his thoughts. Probably Elise's groceries arrived, he thought, continuing to focus on the task at hand. Marcus slides deeper into the sink cabinet, moving his body inward as far as he can to be able to install the last few pieces of flooring. Elise. A familiar female voice came from the foyer. I brought coffee and a croissant from that bakery you like. Christine. Elise's voice came from the living room, clearly full of surprise. I totally forgot you were coming today. Come in, come in. Marcus sighed, realizing that this meant his DIY time was going to be cut short. Christine is Elise's sister, 3 years older than Elise, and is a successful interior designer working in Toronto. She comes to Montreal almost once a month, and on each visit, the sisters spend hours talking about everything from family gossip to career ambitions. He listened to the sounds of the two men approaching the kitchen, ready to burrow under the cabinets and say hello to Christine. However, the next sentence froze him in place. Did you tell him you're moving out next month? Christine's voice was soft, but clearly audible in the silence of the rig's stop. Time seemed to freeze. Marcus felt a wave of vertigo, and the tool in his hand almost fell to the floor. He held his breath, waiting for his wife's answer, hoping that he had misheard her or that this was some sort of misunderstanding. No, Elise replied, her voice low and firm. I need to secure my promotion first, then take half the account. Marcus felt a wave of nausea well up in his throat. Their marriage, their future, everything he thought was solid, was suddenly so fragile. He tightened his grip on the drill, knuckles white, and forced himself to stay quiet and keep listening. Are you sure you want to do this? Christine asked, concern evident in her voice. Marcus isn't a bad guy. I know he's not a bad guy. Elise sighed, but I don't love him anymore. We've become roommates, Christine. And Ryan said dash. Ryan again. Christine interrupted her, disdain in her voice. Are you sure he's not just using you? It's not like that. Elise's voice suddenly became firmer. Ryan knows me. He supports my career and understands my ambitions. Unlike Marcus, who always settles for mediocrity. Marcus felt a tingle. Mediocre? He's an electrical engineer with a steady job and a good income. They chose this house together and planned their future together. Now he finds out that his wife not only plans to leave him, but also considers him mediocre. To make matters worse, there was apparently another man involved. What about the schedule? Christine asked as Marcus heard the sound of a cup being placed on the kitchen counter. I should be offered the associate director position when Steven's program ends next month. Elise said, confidence in her voice. As soon as the promotion is confirmed, I'll let Marcus know. The divorce shouldn't be too complicated. We don't have kids and the house is community property. Legally, I'm entitled to half. And then what? Are you and Ryan getting ready to move in together? Christine sounded skeptical. We are considering it. He's got a great opportunity in LA and wants me to go with him. Los Angeles. Christine raised her voice. Is this really what you want, Elise? Leave everything you've built here. There's nothing to hold on to. Elise answered too quickly, which made Marcus' heart ache even more. This city, this house, this marriage, none of it is what I really want. I just, succumbing to expectations, you know? Get married, buy a house, settle down. But I want more. And Ryan can give you more? At least he tries. He has vision and passion. Elise paused. Speaking of which, Can you take me to the airport on Friday? I told Marcus I was going to Toronto for the seminar, but I was actually going to LA to meet Ryan. Just a couple days. Marcus clenched his fists, trying to control his anger and pain. Not only does his wife plan to abandon him, but she has been cheating on him by maintaining a relationship with another man. And now she was even planning to fly to another city without his knowledge. I don't know, Elise. Christine sounds hesitant. Don't you think you should be honest? If you've decided to leave, why don't you tell him now? Bad timing. Elise insisted. Once the promotion was confirmed, I had a safety net. If I leave now, it will be difficult financially. Marcus makes a lot of money, and I need to make sure I get my fair share. Marcus can barely breathe. The rightful share? They have always been a team, working together to plan for the future. Their finances were never yours or mine, but ours. Now, however, Elise talks about their shared property as if it's a trophy she plans to plunder. You know, knowing Marcus as I do, he'll be very generous if you talk to him directly. Christine said, deception and manipulation only make things worse. I can't risk it. Elise's voice turned cold. I've waited long enough to plan. In a few weeks, it will all be over. I'll be free and start a new life. Marcus listened as the conversation between the two continued, discussing scheduling and details. His thoughts were in turmoil, his emotions swinging between anger, betrayal, and deep sadness. Nonetheless, he forced himself to remain calm and continued the work at hand, pretending he hadn't heard anything. The sisters' conversation shifted to other topics, their voices fading away from the kitchen. Marcus took advantage of the opportunity to complete the remaining flooring installation as quietly as possible. His movements became mechanical, but his thoughts raced. The next few hours were like a dream. He finished installing the flooring, cleaned the kitchen, and slipped quietly into his garage workshop. There, he could stay alone and think about everything that had just happened. The pain in his body and mind almost took his breath away, but he decided not to show it. At least not right now. 5 days have passed, and Marcus has remained outwardly normal. He gets to work on time, comes home and has his usual dinner conversation with Elise, and even shows his support when she mentions going to a seminar in Toronto on Friday. But deep down, he was making plans. Thursday night, as they lay in bed, Elise suddenly turned toward him. Marcus. Her voice seemed small in the darkness. He responded, trying to keep his tone smooth. Have you ever regret anything? Ever done something that made you hate yourself for what you did? The question sent a stab of pain through Marcus. Is it her conscience? He turned to face her, but couldn't read her expression in the darkness. Everyone has regrets, Elise. He answered cautiously. What matters is what we do with them. She was silent for a moment, then reached out and took his hand. This familiar gesture felt so foreign at the moment. Sometimes I worry we've gone too far. She said softly. Alike. We became different people, but no one wanted to admit it. Marcus's heart raced. Was she testing him? Or are you really considering coming clean to him? Are you trying to tell me something, Elise? He asked, keeping his voice as calm as possible. After a long silence, she sighed. Nothing. It's just a stressful job. Hopefully this workshop will help me clear my head. I'm sure it will. He replied, his hopes dashed in his mind. The next morning, Marcus woke up earlier than usual, pretended to catch an early train, kissed Elise on the cheek, and left. But he didn't go to work. Instead, he traveled to the office of a private investigator. Richard Novak is a retired police officer who now runs a small but reputable investigative firm. Marcus contacted him a few days ago to set up the meeting. So, Richard said as he sat behind his file-laden desk, you think your wife is having an affair, plans to leave you, and wants to get a promotion at the company before the divorce. Marcus nodded, feeling like he was ripping open freshly scabbed wounds by uttering those words. I need proof, not only about the affair, but her plans. If she really wants to leave, I won't stop her. But I'm not going to let her cheat me and take something that doesn't belong to her. Richard nodded thoughtfully. I don't usually advise people to do this, but given the circumstances, have you considered monitoring your joint accounts? If she's planning to take large sums of money, you'll want to know ahead of time. It's taken care of. Marcus replied. I set up notifications yesterday. If there are any large transactions, I'll be alerted immediately. Very good. Richard looks impressed. What do you know about this Ryan? Almost nothing. I don't even know his last name. But I do know that Elise will be flying to Los Angeles to meet him this afternoon instead of going to Toronto for the seminar she claims to be attending. Then start here. Richard pulled out a notebook. Give me her flight information and any details that might pertain to this Ryan. I'll have someone follow her at the airport to see who she's meeting with. Marcus provides everything he knows, including Elise's flight times and the password patterns she usually uses, a personal joke they've shared in the past that she still uses on many accounts. We'll get you an answer as soon as we can, Richard promised. In the meantime, stay calm and don't spook anyone. Marcus nodded, feeling a strange sense of calm. Knowing that he was taking action, rather than passively waiting to be betrayed, gave him a sense of control. That afternoon, as usual, he took Elise to the airport, kissed her goodbye, and wished her luck at the seminar. He allowed his smile to fade as she disappeared into the security area and then drove home to begin the next phase of his program. Returning to the empty house, Marcus immediately heads to their home office. He fired up Elise's laptop. She'd never thought to hide the password from him and began searching for any information that might be relevant to Ryan or her plans. Hours of searching produced some results. In her emails, he found multiple exchanges with a man named Ryan Caldwell that were both intimate and professional. Ryan appears to be the creative director of a design firm in Los Angeles, and Elise is considering joining his team. But the intimate tone of the emails suggests that their relationship is much more than professional. More worryingly, he found a detailed list of finances in an encrypted folder entitled Separation Plan. The document lists their joint assets and how Elise plans to split them. Marcus looked at the screen and felt a wave of nausea. She even calculated the value of their house and noted that it may require a forced sale. Over the next few days, Marcus maintains a superficial calm while gathering more evidence. Richard's report confirms that Elise did meet with Ryan Caldwell in Los Angeles, where they embraced at the airport before heading to a fancy hotel. The investigation also revealed that Ryan had been divorced for 2 years, had an impressive professional resume, but also had a significant amount of debt, possibly as a result of his luxurious lifestyle. He has financial problems, and your wife has money. Richard was blunt on the phone. I've seen too much of that. When Elise returned home on Sunday afternoon, she looked radiant, with a sparkle in her eyes that Marcus hadn't seen in a long time. She talks about how the seminar has inspired her and how she has connected with industry experts. Each lie stabs Marcus in the heart like a knife, but he smiles, asks her relevant questions, and pretends to know nothing. After dinner, as they sat on the couch, Elise suddenly became silent. She stared at the glass in her hand, frowning slightly. I need to tell you something. She finally spoke, her voice almost a whisper. Marcus's heart raced. Is this it? Is she coming clean? There's an opportunity at work. She continued, still not looking at him. A post from Los Angeles. They want me on their team. Los Angeles? Marcus asked, feigning surprise. It's far. I know it's sudden, she said quickly, finally looking up. But this is a rare opportunity to really push my career forward. Do you want to go? He asked, keeping his voice steady. I don't know, she answered, but he could tell she was lying. It will require a big change on our part. Your job, this house, our marriage, he added calmly. Elise stiffened, a flash of panic in her eyes. Of course, it will affect us, but we can figure it out. Maybe far away for a while until you can get a job over there too. Or what, Elise? She took a deep breath. I don't want to make any hasty decisions. Let's see if this position is really for me first. Marcus nodded, realizing she was still reluctant to come clean. She was paving the way for herself, creating what seemed like a reasonable excuse to leave. It deepened his anger, but it also gave him more time to perfect his plan. Sure, he replied, reaching for her hand. Whatever happens, I want you to be happy, Elise. It was true, though not in the way she had imagined. For the next 2 weeks, Marcus' life becomes a carefully choreographed performance. By day, he is a caring and supportive husband who encourages Elise to pursue her new opportunities. At night, he continued to gather evidence and refine his plan. Through Richard's research, he learns that Ryan Caldwell's company is actually strapped for cash and has recently lost several major clients. This reinforces his suspicion that Ryan may be more interested in Elise's finances than in herself. Marcus also discovered that Elise had begun transferring small amounts of money into a newly opened private account. These amounts are small enough not to set off the alarms he sets up, but they add up to quite a bit. She also had an initial consultation with a divorce attorney, information that Richard had obtained through his network of contacts. All of these discoveries strengthened Marcus' resolve. If Elise wants war, he'll be ready for it. But he's not aiming for revenge, at least not entirely. He wants justice. He wants to protect what he's worked so hard for. And most of all, he wants Elise and Ryan to realize that deception and manipulation ultimately have a price. Finally, the time was right. Elise receives her long-awaited promotion notice, and she spends the entire evening celebrating and talking about how the new position will change the trajectory of her career. Marcus accompanies her to drink champagne and toast her success, all the while knowing that the countdown has begun. The next morning, when Elise left the house to head to the office, she kissed him with particular passion. "We should celebrate tonight," she said, with what Marcus now understood to be relief shining in her eyes. "I want to talk to you about the future." "Sounds good," he replied, knowing that she planned to tell him tonight that she was leaving. "I'll make some special preparations." As soon as Elise leaves, Marcus springs into action. He called his attorney, a savvy lady who specializes in high-net-worth divorce cases and was recommended by Richard, to make sure everything was ready. Then he began to execute the final phase of his plan. First, he went to the bank and withdrew half of the funds in their joint account and deposited them into his newly opened personal account. This is perfectly legal and would be considered a preemptive but reasonable action in any divorce proceeding. Considering Elise was already secretly moving money around, it was necessary self-preservation. Next, he heads to the building where Elise's office is located. Not to see her, but to see her boss, Frank Stevens. The two had met at several company events and got along well. Marcus had no prior appointment, but when he confidently walked into Frank's office and indicated that he had something important to discuss in private, Frank agreed to see him. "Marcus." Frank got up and shook his hand. "It's a surprise. Is everything okay?" "Honestly, not so good, Frank," Marcus replied while removing a folder from his briefcase. "I have some information I need to share that could affect your company." Frank's expression turned serious. "Have a seat. Is this about Elise?" "Yes." Marcus nodded and pushed the folder across the table. "I recently found out that Elise plans to leave the company, taking client information with her, to join a competitor in Los Angeles." Frank's eyes widened as he opened the folder. Inside are copies of Elise's correspondence with Ryan, including emails discussing how to transfer certain clients from her current firm to Ryan's firm. All of this is true. Marcus didn't need to falsify any evidence. Elise and Ryan's self-confidence and arrogance make it so that they don't even consider covering their tracks. It's very serious allegations. Frank spoke slowly, his expression growing somber. "I know," Marcus replied gravely. "Believe me, I wish it weren't so. But as a person with high moral standards, I can't stand by and watch this happen. Our marriage is also in limbo, and frankly, it might have something to do with her program." Frank read more emails, then shook his head. "Elise has just been promoted to associate director. We trust her, gave her access to all major client data. I apologize for being the bearer of bad news," Marcus said sincerely. "But I think you and the company have a right to know and to take the necessary precautions." Frank looks both shocked and disappointed. "Thanks for telling me that, Marcus. I'll take care of this immediately." Leaving the building, Marcus knew that his actions would undoubtedly be devastating to Elise's career. But considering that she does plan to take her clients to her competitors, it's just a natural consequence of her behavior. His next stop is the design firm where Ryan Caldwell works. In his capacity as a potential client, he arranged a meeting with the company's CFO. After a brief introduction, he again showed correspondence between Elise and Ryan, highlighting how they planned to use confidential customer information and how Ryan misused company resources to further that plan. When Marcus left, he knew Ryan would face harsh questioning and possibly disciplinary action, even dismissal. Considering the financial difficulties the company is already facing, it is unlikely that they would tolerate such behavior. On the outside, Marcus' actions may look like revenge, but he's just exposing the truth. He did not falsify any evidence or exaggerate any facts. He is simply bringing information that already exists to those who have a right to know. If Elise and Ryan intend to act honestly, they won't face any consequences. In the early evening, Marcus returns home and prepares Elise's favorite dinner, setting out candles and the finest china. He poured 2 glasses of red wine and waited for his wife to come home. When the doorbell rang, he was surprised to find not Elise, but Christine standing outside the door with a serious expression. "Christine," he asked, trying to hide his surprise. "What happened?" "We need to talk, Marcus," she said, hurrying into the house. "It's about Elise." Marcus closed the door and turned to face her. "What's going on? Is something wrong?" Christine looks both angry and sad. She's just been suspended from the company. Someone told her boss that she planned to steal clients to take to a competing company. "I want to know if that person is you." Instead of answering immediately, Marcus walked towards the kitchen and poured Christine a glass of wine. "You heard that, didn't you?" Christine asked from behind him. "The other day in the kitchen, when you were installing the floor. You heard us talking." He turned and looked her straight in the eye. "Yeah, I heard that. Every word. Including how she planned to cheat on me and take half of our joint account and her relationship with this Ryan." Christine sighed deeply, her shoulders slumping. "I told her to come clean. I told her not to do that." "I know." Marcus handed her the glass. "I hear you trying to convince her." "So, yes, you did tell her boss?" Christine asked, accepting the glass. "I'm just sharing the truth, Christine." Marcus replied calmly. "Elise and Ryan do plan to bring clients to his company. I'm just making sure the people involved are informed." Christine stared at him for a long moment, then shook her head. "I never thought you'd do that. You've been a good man, Marcus. Good people have a bottom line." He said simply, "I'm not going to let someone use me and then smile and take it." "She's on her way to Ryan's office," Christine told him. He got in trouble too. They accused him of violating a confidentiality agreement and a non-compete clause. Marcus nodded, not surprised by the news. "So she's finally leaving me." "I think so," Christine said softly. She's angry, Marcus. She thinks you ruined her career." "I'm just exposing the truth," Marcus repeated. "Her choices, her actions ruined her career." Christine looks at the carefully set table, the candlelight, and the food, then looks back at Marcus. "You knew she was going to tell you she was leaving tonight, so you beat her to it." "I protected myself," Marcus confirmed, "just like anyone would do when they learn they've been lied to and manipulated." Christine took a slow sip of her drink. "You know, Elise and I are very different. She was always energetic and ambitious. But sometimes, she's forgotten what's really important." Marcus felt an unexpected surge of sympathy come over him. Not to Elise, but to Christine, who has always tried to guide her sister down the right path. "I used to love her, you know. Much love." "I know." Christine nodded sadly. "That's why I'm so disappointed in her behavior." They sat in silence for a while. Then Christine got up and got ready to leave. "I should go see her. Despite what she did, she's still my sister." Marcus nodded. "I understand." At the door, Christine stopped and turned to face him. "What are you going to do next?" Marcus shrugged. "Rebuilding my life. Looking for someone who truly cherishes me. Keep moving." Christine seemed like she wanted to say something, but eventually just nodded and left. Marcus closes the door and returns to the empty house. Although there is a sense of sadness, there is also a sense of relief. His marriage may have ended, but at least it ended on his terms, not Elise's. He protected his finances and dignity and made sure that those who wanted to cheat him paid for their actions. He sat down at the table and raised his glass alone. "To honesty," he said to the empty room, then took a sip of his drink. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but tonight, he allowed himself to feel this small victory. Early morning sunlight poured in through the curtains and Marcus opened his eyes, feeling the empty coldness on the other side of the bed. It's been a week since Elise left their home with anger and accusations. Over the course of the week, he received countless angry texts and voicemails, but he chose not to respond to most of them. Only when it came to practical matters, such as when she had to come back for something, did he reply with a brief acknowledgement. He sat up and looked around the bedroom. The night Elise left, he'd gathered up the things that belonged to her and put them neatly in the guest room, not out of malice, but as a way to clarify boundaries. That shared space, the bedroom filled with their shared memories, now belonged only to him. Marcus's cell phone beeped, and he picked it up to look at it. It's a text from his lawyer, Lisa. I was contacted by Elisa's attorney. They asked for an early lifting of the joint account freeze, claiming she needed the funds for living expenses. How should we respond? Marcus thought for a moment. The court has authorized a temporary freeze on their joint accounts until the property division issue is resolved. It was a precaution suggested by Lisa, considering Elisa's earlier attempts to take out large amounts of money without informing him. Let them go through the normal process. He replied, if she is in genuine financial difficulty, she can make a formal application for temporary living expenses. He knew it sounded cold, but Elise wasn't really in financial trouble. According to Richard's research, she had already saved a sizable amount in a private account, perfectly adequate to cover temporary living expenses. In addition, she now lives with Ryan, who despite his debt, still has a well-paying job, at least for the time being. Marcus got up and began his daily preparations. It was Saturday, but he planned to go to the office to catch up on a critical company project. Work was his current haven, keeping his thoughts away from the chaos of his personal life. In front of the bathroom mirror, he noticed he looked tired but determined. The stress of the past few weeks had left its mark on his face, but there was a new kind of fortitude in his eyes. He was no longer the husband who was kept in the dark, but a man ready to fight for himself. He was about to go out when the doorbell rang. Through the cat's eye, he saw Christine standing outside the door, holding a shopping bag. Marcus took a deep breath and opened the door. "Good morning," she said, with a hint of uncertainty in her tone. "I brought breakfast, cocktails and coffee." Despite the fact that things have always been good between them, interactions between Marcus and Christine have become a bit awkward since that night. She's caught in the middle, both as Elisa's sister and as someone who has always thought Marcus deserved better. "Thanks." He sidled up to let her in. "But I was just heading out the door to the office." "On a Saturday?" Christine asked with a raised eyebrow, following him into the kitchen. "You don't have to work this hard, Marcus. Especially now." He shrugged and helped her get the food and coffee out of the bag. "Work keeps me busy. It's very helpful." "I understand." Christine nodded and opened a carton, revealing the still warm kosher inside. "But you need to take care of yourself too." They sat down at the kitchen island and started breakfast. Christine eyed him carefully, as if assessing his state. "So," she finally spoke, "you talked to Elisa's lawyer?" Marcus nodded. "My lawyer's on it. It doesn't look like it's going to be an amicable divorce." Christine sighed. "She's angry, Marcus. She feels you betrayed her." Marcus stopped and looked at her incredulously. "I betrayed her? After she lied to me and planned to leave me while taking everything?" I know." Christine held up her hand, placatingly. "I'm not defending her. I just tell you what she thinks. She's always been like this, ever since she was a little girl, never wanting to admit their mistakes." Marcus shook his head and took a sip of his coffee. "She can think what she wants. The law and the evidence are on my side." "About that?" Christine hesitated. "She said you hacked into her email and her computer. Is this true?" Marcus considered this carefully. Technically, he did check Elisa's email, but he used a password that she never changed and that they had always shared. "Does this legally constitute trespassing?" "I didn't hack into anything," he finally answered. "We have always shared passwords as part of the transparency in our marriage. If she wants to stay private, she should change her password." Christine nodded, seemingly accepting the explanation. "That's what I told her. But you know what she's like now, any excuse to assuage her guilt, she'll seize on." They ate quietly for a while, then Christine spoke again. "Ryan lost his job. His company fired him for violating a confidentiality agreement and non-compete." Marcus felt a twinge of satisfaction, but didn't show it. "That's his own fault." "Yes, but now Elise has to cover his living expenses too," Christine said with a hint of sarcasm. "Her savings will soon run out, especially if she can't find a new job." "She'll find it." Marcus said there was no malice in the voice. "Elise is very capable. She just made the wrong choice." Christine looked at him with a newfound respect in her expression. "You know, a lot of other people would have held a grudge against her even more. But you seem to be very calm." Marcus pondered this. He did feel calm, but not because he didn't feel the pain of betrayal. Rather, it was because he took action to protect himself. "Anger is pointless," he finally said. "What happened has happened. I just want to settle this fairly and move on with my life." Christine smiled, the first genuine smile Marcus had seen from her in weeks. "You're a good man, Marcus. Much better than my sister deserves." He didn't respond to that, just looked down at his coffee. Christine's support means a lot, but he also knows that as Elisa's sister, she's in a difficult position. Did you? Christine hesitated. Ever think about the way things might have been different? If you weren't under the kitchen that day? What if you never heard that conversation? Marcus lifted his head and looked her straight in the eye. I've often thought, but the truth is, things happen even when I don't hear them. She had made her decision. The only difference is that I'll be kept in the dark until it's too late. Christine nodded heavily. You're right. I wish things were different. I want her to be the person I always thought she was. We all hope so. Marcus said softly. After breakfast, Christine helped him clean up and then got ready to leave. At the door, she suddenly turned and embraced him in a brief but sincere hug. Take care of yourself, okay? She said, step back. If you need anything or just want to talk, I'm here. Marcus felt a pang of gratitude. In all this mess, at least he didn't lose a friend. Thank you, Christine. Really. When she leaves, Marcus returns to the house and decides to postpone his plans to go to the office. Instead, he sat on his backyard patio, enjoying the morning's tranquility. The wind blew gently against his face and birds sang in the nearby trees. The house, their former home, feels different now, but not necessarily in a bad way. It feels like a new beginning. 2 weeks later, Marcus is sitting in Lisa's office discussing an upcoming divorce mediation session. Elisa's attorney made a series of demands, many of which Marcus argued were unreasonable. So she wants the house? Marcus asked incredulously, looking at the papers Lisa handed him. It's not just the house. Lisa sighed and pushed up her glasses. She's also asking for half of your retirement account, the higher value of the 2 cars in the garage, and half of your stock portfolio. Marcus shook his head. Is she kidding? Especially given her attempts to take away company clients and the fact that she has secretly transferred funds. It's just a negotiating tactic. Lisa comforted him. Her lawyers start with high demands, hoping to end up with a compromise that works in her favor. But we have enough evidence of her misconduct which will work in our favor on the issue of property division. Marcus looks out the window and ponders his options. Although he has enough evidence to prove Elisa's misconduct, the delayed legal process can be costly in terms of time and money. What if we make a counterproposal? He asked, turning back to his eyes. I keep the house and my retirement account. She can take her own personal belongings, as well as funds she has transferred to a private account. We split the rest of the joint assets equally. Lisa considered the suggestion. It's a reasonable offer, considering the circumstances. But she probably won't take it. Then let her explain to the judge why she won't accept it. Marcus said firmly. I'm sure any rational person looking at the evidence would think that's fair. Lisa nodded and started taking notes. I'll pass the offer on to her attorney. In the meantime, we should prepare evidence in case a formal trial is required. Upon leaving the attorney's office, Marcus felt a strange sense of calm. Although the divorce process can get ugly, he no longer feels helpless or controlled. He's fighting for himself, and he knows he's on the side of justice. Later that day, he received a text message from an unknown number. This is Ryan. We need to talk. Meet me at the Blue Bar downtown tonight at 8 p.m. Just the 2 of us. Marcus stared at his phone, amazed at Ryan's courage in contacting him directly. Should I accept the invitation? Could this be some sort of trap, or just a desperate man's attempt to salvage the situation? After some thought, Marcus decides to go to the appointment, but he will be cautious. He sent Richard a text message telling him the location and time and asking him to arrange for someone to be nearby, just in case. Then he replied to Ryan. I'll be there. Simple and straightforward. At 8 p.m. that night, Marcus walked into the Blue Bar, a mid-range downtown bar that usually attracts after-hours professionals. He immediately recognized Ryan sitting in the corner, even though they had never met. He looked even more haggard than he did in the photo, with dark circles under his eyes evident and his clothes rumpled. Ryan, Marcus said calmly as he approached the table. Ryan looked up and was a little surprised to see Marcus. Marcus, thanks for coming. He stood up and reached out, but his movements were stiff and full of uncertainty. Marcus shook his hand briefly, then sat down. What do you want to talk about? Ryan sighed deeply and wiped his face with his hand. First of all, I want to say I'm sorry. I know it may sound hollow, but I mean it. Marcus just stared at him, waiting for him to continue. Things out of control. Ryan continued, his voice low. It was a mistake from the beginning. Elise and I, we shouldn't have started this relationship. Then why did you start? Marcus asked calmly. Ryan shook his head. Initially, it was just a work connection. Her analytical skills are exactly what my company needs. But over time, it became something else. Marcus took a sip of the beer the waiter had just delivered. So you decided to not only have an affair with my wife, but to use her to help you get clients for her company. Ryan cringed. Listen, about the client. That was a mistake. We're in a financial crisis, and I've done stupid things. But that wasn't the main reason for the relationship with Elise. And what's the main reason? We feel so much alike. Both ambitious, both wanting more. Ryan paused. But from that day in the kitchen, everything changed. Marcus raised an eyebrow. She told you that? Yes. Ryan nodded. When she found out you knew everything, she broke down. Honestly, I've never seen her like that. All of a sudden, she started questioning everything we did. That surprised Marcus a little. He had assumed that Elise was just angry that her plan had been uncovered, not guilty for her behavior. So, what did you call me here tonight for? Begging for my forgiveness? Marcus asked, a hint of sarcasm in his voice. Ryan shook his head. No, not asking for forgiveness. I know we've done something unforgivable. I came here to tell you. It's all over. Marcus looked at him confused. You and Elise. Yes. Ryan confirmed. She's not the person I know anymore. Since she lost her job and was confronted by your lawyer, she has become. It's different. Anger, victim mentality, and refusal to take any responsibility. Marcus wasn't sure how to respond. On the one hand, hearing about the breakdown of Ryan and Elise's relationship brought him a touch of satisfaction. On the other hand, he wasn't sure why Ryan felt the need to tell him about it in person. Why are you telling me this? Marcus asked directly. Ryan looked at his glass, then raised his head and looked Marcus straight in the eye. Because I want you to know that your actions made an impact. You didn't just sit around, you protected yourself. I respect that. And, he hesitated, I wanted to warn you. Warn me about what? Elise. She's getting a little paranoid. Ryan whispered. She thinks you're acting not only to protect yourself, but to get back at her. She's been talking about how she's going to make you pay. Marcus felt a pang of unease. What kind of price? I'm not sure. Ryan admits it. But enough to worry me to think I should tell you. Be careful, Marcus. She's not the person you know anymore. They sat in silence for a while until Marcus finally nodded. Thanks for the warning. One more thing. Ryan pulled a flash drive out of his pocket. Here are some emails and documents you might want. Proof that she was the one who first suggested utilizing customer information. This may help you in your legal battle. Marcus took the flash drive and was surprised. Why did you give me this? Ryan laughed bitterly. Maybe it's a conscience. Maybe it's because I hate being treated like the only bad guy. In any case, it's yours. They talked for a few more minutes, mostly about practical matters, like the personal belongings Elise still left in Ryan's apartment. Then Ryan stood up and got ready to leave. You know what's ironic? He said before he left. She keeps saying you have no ambition and are content with mediocrity. But look who's standing now and who's down. When Ryan leaves, Marcus sits and contemplates the unexpected meeting. He didn't feel the sense of triumph he was expecting. Instead, he felt a strange emptiness. Winning this fight should have felt better, but really, he just felt tired and a little sad. Ryan's warning did worry him, though. If Elise was really planning some kind of revenge, he needed to be vigilant. He took out his cell phone and dialed Richard's number. I need extra security, he said after Richard answered. Can you arrange for someone to monitor my house and office? Over the next few days, Marcus stepped up his security. He changed all the locks on his house, installed a more advanced security system, and even hired a private security guard to temporarily guard his house. These could be overreactions, but given Elise's precarious state, he'd rather err on the side of caution. Meanwhile, the divorce proceedings continued. Lisa is pleasantly surprised by the evidence Ryan provides that further proves Elise's misconduct. With this new information, she is even more confident that she will be able to secure a favorable divorce settlement for Marcus. Considering all the evidence, I'm sure the judge will be on our side, Lisa told Marcus in yet another meeting. Particularly with regard to the division of property, you're taking a strong stand. Marcus nodded, a calm satisfaction spreading through him. That's good. I want to make sure she doesn't benefit from this farce. Lisa flipped through the papers. Technically, she could get a portion of the community property. But given her misconduct and attempts, we have good reason to ask the court to rule in your favor. What I want is simple, Lisa, Marcus said, his voice firm and calm. I want to keep my house, my retirement account, my stock investments. She can take her personal belongings and the funds she's already secretly transferred, but that's it. Lisa looked at him with an admiring gleam in her eye. I've rarely met anyone who handles betrayal as calmly as you do. Most clients are overwhelmed with emotion. Trust me, emotions exist, Marcus replied, but I won't let anger cloud my judgment. She wants to steal everything from me and thinks I'm going to sit back and do nothing. I'm going to make her realize the cost of that mistake. That night, Marcus sat alone in his backyard, staring at the stars. It was a clear night with a lot of stars. He thought back to when he and Elise had first bought the house, when they'd sat in this same spot, planning for the future. Now that future is in pieces, only fragments of memories remain. His cell phone rang, and it was Christine calling. Hey, he answered. Marcus. She sounded nervous. Where are you now? At home. What's going on? Elise is drunk, Christine said quickly. She was saying something about going to your place to end it all. I thought you should know. Marcus was immediately alert. Where is she now? With me, in my apartment. She came to me in an emotional breakdown. But she's angry, Marcus. I've never seen her like this. Did she mention exactly what she was going to do? No, Christine replied. But she had a bag with her and wouldn't let me see what was in it. I'm worried. Thanks for telling me, Marcus said sincerely. I'll be more careful. Can you let her stay at your place? I'll do my best. But she's emotionally unstable right now. Immediately after hanging up, Marcus contacted Richard to tell him about this new situation. Richard promises to send someone to increase surveillance of the house and suggests that Marcus consider living somewhere else for the time being. I'm not running away, Marcus replied firmly. This is my home, and we have security systems and guards. Nonetheless, he checked all the doors and windows to make sure everything was locked and then got ready for bed. Before going to bed, he backed up all the evidence with the contents of the flash drive and stored it in the cloud and on an extra hard drive, just in case. The next morning, Marcus is awakened by a sharp knock on his door. He looked at the clock. It was only 6 a.m. Who would come to visit so early? Through the security cameras, he saw Christine standing in front of his door, looking anxious and tired. He quickly got out of bed, put on his robe, and went to the door. Christine, he asked in surprise as he opened the door. What happened? She's gone, Christine said directly, rushing into the house. I woke up this morning and Elise and her bag were gone. Her car isn't there either. Marcus shut the door and locked it immediately. Have you tried to contact her? Sure. Christine nodded, fear shining in her eyes. Cell phone's off. Marcus, I'm really worried she's going to do something stupid. He took out his own cell phone and dialed Richard's number. I need additional security immediately, he said once Richard answered. Elise is missing, probably on her way here. After hanging up, he turned to Christine. Would you like to stay and help? If she comes here and sees you, she might calm down. Christine nodded. Sure. I won't let her hurt you or herself. They were in the kitchen making coffee and waiting. Marcus's brain was running at high speed, trying to predict what Elise might do. Is she here to hurt him? Destroying the house? Or are you just looking for a heated confrontation? An hour later, Richard's team arrived, 2 security guards patrolling outside and 1 inside the house. This feels like overkill, but given the circumstances, Marcus would rather be small than big. Just as they were discussing their next move, the doorbell rang. Through the surveillance, they see Elise standing outside, looking tired and haggard, a small duffel bag in her hand and a determined gleam in her eye. That's her travel bag, Christine whispered, but I don't know what's in it. Marcus looks to the security guard, who says he's ready for anything. He took a deep breath and walked toward the front door. Let me, Christine said, stopping him. Let me talk to her first. Marcus nodded. Okay, but be careful. Christine opens the door and Marcus stands a few paces away as security stands by nearby. Elise? Christine asked softly. What are you doing here? Elise looked surprised to see her sister. Christine? You. Why are you here? I'm worried about you. Christine replied, concern in her voice. You said some worrying things last night and then disappeared this morning. Elise's expression turned cold and hard. I need to see Marcus. This is my last chance. Last chance to do what? Marcus steps up, but keeps a safe distance. What's in your bag, Elise? Just the papers. She replied briefly, then looked up and straight into his eyes. Marcus, I'm here to. Please change your mind. I need us to split the property equally. I have nothing left. I was fired from my company, my bank account was almost empty, and Ryan left me. Marcus felt a chill creep up his spine. So you think you can now come and beg for my mercy after planning to betray me and try to take everything away? It's not mercy. Elise's voice raised. I deserve this. This is our joint money and property. No, Elise. Marcus replied calmly. There was no anger in his voice, only determination. You gave up those rights the moment you decided to lie to me. The law may say it's community property, but morally, you no longer have any rights. You ruined my life. She cried out suddenly, tears welling up in her eyes. My job, my relationship, my future. No, that's what you did. Marcus replied, his voice still calm. You made a choice, and now you have to face the consequences. That's how life works. Elise's shoulders slumped, and she suddenly looked small and vulnerable. I don't know what to do. I can't even pay my bills anymore. It's not my problem. Marcus said, unwavering. You have job skills. You'll find a way out. But it won't be through my money. Please, Marcus. She begged, her voice quivering. As long as it's equitably divided. I just want my fair share. Fair. Marcus raised an eyebrow. Were you thinking of anything fair when you planned to leave me without my knowledge and steal the company's clients while taking half of our fortune? Elise was silent, tears running down her cheeks. That's what I'm proposing. Marcus continued, his voice firm. You can take your personal belongings with you. That's all. House, retirement accounts, stocks, even furniture, leave it all. Considering all you've done, it's been a generous offer. What am I supposed to do with my life? She cried out, desperation in her voice. It's not something I need to think about. Marcus replied, maybe you can move back in with your parents or ask your sister for help. But my duty is over. Elise turned to Christine, her eyes pleading. Christine, help me. Tell him it's not fair. Christine looked at her sister and then to Marcus. Her expression was filled with sadness, but also understanding. I love you, Elise. You'll always be my sister. But Marcus is right. You made a choice, and now you have to live with the consequences. Elise looks like she's been hit hard. Her last glimmer of hope is dashed. Is this the end? I lose everything, and you? Do you get everything? Not I get everything. Marcus corrected. I was the one who kept what was rightfully mine. There is a difference. Elise's expression turned icy. My attorney will contact you. Anytime. Marcus replied. No worries at all. The evidence is in my favor. If you want to explain in court how you plan to defraud me and your company, be my guest. Elise looks like she wants to say something, but eventually she just turns away. There were no apologies, no tears, just a cold anger and acceptance of failure. As she drove away, Christine turned to Marcus. Are you sure this is how you want it to end? It's not about what I want. Marcus replied, watching Elise's car disappear at the end of the street. It's about the consequences of the act. She was going to betray me and take everything. Why should I give her anything when her plan fails? Christine sighed heavily. I understand. I wish things were different. Me too, Marcus admits. But it's her choice, not mine. 3 months later, the divorce was officially finalized. The court's decision fully supports Marcus's position. The judge made it clear that while Canadian matrimonial law generally supports an equal division of property, the evidence of Elise's attempts to defraud her spouse and employer were exceptional circumstances that justified a departure from the standard division. Elise left Montreal and, according to Christine, moved back to their parents' home in Toronto. She got a job as a junior analyst at a fraction of her previous salary. Her career has been dealt a serious blow, and it may take years to recover. Ryan isn't doing too well in LA either. His company declared bankruptcy after losing several major clients, and he is having difficulty finding new work in the industry because he violated a non-compete agreement. Marcus keeps in touch with Christine. Even though she is Elise's sister, she understands Marcus' situation and respects his decision. She sometimes told him how Elise was doing, not to make him feel guilty, but because she thought he had a right to know. She's changed a lot. Christine told Marcus at a dinner. Quieter and more cautious. She's even started volunteering. I think she's trying to rebuild herself. I hope she succeeds. Marcus said sincerely, not out of pity, but because he doesn't want anyone to live in perpetual error. But that's her journey, not mine. Marcus' own life has changed. He was promoted, given a higher salary and more responsibility. He redecorated the house, erasing traces of the past. He even started dating, slowly, cautiously, but with new hope. When he meets Elise at the mall one day, he barely recognizes her. She looked much thinner and had deep dark circles under her eyes. She stared at him for a moment, then quickly averted her eyes and hurried away, as if afraid to face him. At that moment, Marcus felt a strange calm. Not because I'm happy to see her in pain, but because I understand that everything has a price. Elise pays for her choices, and he pays to protect himself. It's the balance of life. In the coffee shops near his home, he would often see young couples, hopefully planning for the future. He sometimes wondered how many of them would experience the same betrayal as he had. How many people would be tempted by short-sighted desires and insatiable ambitions like Elise? But those were no longer his concerns. He won, not just in law, but in life. He preserved his dignity, he preserved his property, and most importantly, he proved that he was not the kind of person who could be cheated and used. Year after year, Marcus' life continues to move forward. And on the other side of town, Elise goes on with her life, forever living with the consequences of her choices. There is no reconciliation, no forgiveness, only respective paths and lessons learned. Everything she wanted, a better career, a more passionate relationship, a more affluent life, all went out the window. Marcus, who she thought was content with mediocrity, has achieved true success and inner peace. That's the price of betrayal. That's the sweetness of revenge. That's the end of today's story. For more captivating tales, hit subscribe and never miss an episode.